My guest today is Kelly Huguet. She is a Fort Lauderdale realtor and a waterfront specialist. She takes something that looks like a fantasy and makes it a reality.
If you have a popular home out there and there's many offers, go in with a fair price and a large escrow check at the very beginning.
If you're buying something that may not be your forever home, think about great lot, great location. Maybe the house is but you can live in it and all of that and can enjoy it for what you want immediately. But down the road, always look for the saleability of it for the future.
My husband and I, with the kids, we've been struck by lightning. I just try to stay honest all the time. And I believe, and sometimes I may lose a sale by being honest.
That was the first forever home that I bought. And now I'm on the fourth forever home that I bought. Hey friends, welcome back to the Marty Davis Show, where we turn stumbling blocks into stepping stones. And we share with you the stories behind successful people. When you live in South Florida, where people talk about South Florida, they have this dream. It's the idea of palm trees, sunshine, maybe even hopping on their boat from their backyard. And is that dream attainable? We have the person today who's going to be able to answer those questions. My guest today is Kelly Huguet. She is a Fort Lauderdale realtor and a waterfront specialist. In other words, she does all those beautiful homes on the water, whether they're big, small, teardowns, or McMansions, with the experience that she has of living on the waterfront for the past 20 years, but she comes to the table with a unique set of experiences because she was in corporate America for a number of years, managing plants from everywhere from China to the US and doing all types of sales work and management, which she brings that skill, which is quite unique, to being a realtor and dealing with her clients. So for the past almost 2 decades now, you've been working with families, with investors, and dreamers on how to make this waterfront lifestyle a reality. Today, we're filming at the beautiful Arlo Wynwood. It's located in the heart of Miami's Arts District. Designed by famed architect Marty Davis, unfortunately no relative. We are up on the 3rd floor today at their indoor-outdoor lush lounge called Higher Ground. A great spot for community activities, activations, art shows, and just getting to know the neighborhood. So today's show is going to be an exciting one because our guest is a really good friend of mine, and it's always great to have really good friends on. Without further ado, let's get started and talk about Fort Lauderdale and South Florida waterfront real estate. So Kelly, let's dive in.
Okay.
And Kelly, you had a long career in corporate America before, the initial tiptoe and now the total immersion in real estate in South Florida. What pulled you to the world of waterfront realty?
Well, because the main reason I'm with Waterfront Realty is because I love the water. I love boating, and that's my passion. And I love everything about living on the water. I love swimming. When I was a kid, I used to love to water ski. I think I could still do that if I had to. And, I grew up around boats my whole life. It's in my blood, truly, water. So when I started real estate, I was immediately drawn to the water.
I can understand that. You and I both love the water. And by the way, Kelly and I have gotten together on, 3-4 transactions, I think, buying and selling property on the water. So it's all great. But looking back, how was that decision to move into waterfront real estate not only shape your career, but your lifestyle in which you live? How did that all come about raising your kids by the water?
Well, when my kids were very young, we purchased the waterfront. Well, actually, we purchased it before they were even born. But we actually remodeled and moved into the waterfront home. And my kids, we had a 44-foot Sea Ray boat as the kids were growing up. And for vacation, what we did is we would pile the dogs, the kids, and the boat. We would fill it up with food, and toys and movies for the kids. And away we would go to the Bahamas. And we didn't even know where we were going a lot of times. So we would just take off for 2 or 3 weeks. And we would spend the night out in the ocean with 2 children, which brought its own challenges at times with 2 children, 2 dogs, 2 small children, 2 dogs. And so we would have a wonderful time. And the kids have memories that I think that will stick with them the rest of their lives. You know, when they're young, it's like, Mom, I don't want to be in the boat again. But now that they're older, it's like, yeah, we wouldn't mind going back to the Bahamas if we could.
That's right.
We don't have the big boat anymore, though.
Well, but you still have a small boat now,
Yes,
right? Yes.
right.
You never give up on the boats,
You
right?
never.
I know your family loves the pool, loves being on the water, and gets to enjoy the outdoors being on the water in South Florida, right?
Right.
Is that kind of lifestyle for everyone? And do you get feedback after sometimes where people find that it isn't their dream lifestyle? And how do you help them make those right decisions when they're looking to invest in property in South Florida?
Yes. If I have a client who is interested in waterfront property but doesn't really know why, I may ask them, is it just because you want to look at the water, or do you just want to be near the water for whatever reason? Or are you a boater? What is, if they really are not into the water, I would kind of, suggest that maybe we look at a few dry lots, because why spend all the money and, the maintenance that's required living on the water if you're not really a water person? So, and ultimately at the end, it's their decision, but I like to give them many options.
Right. And talk to them about those risk and some costs. So what are some of those costs that happen when you're living on the water, and the things that you also have to look for when you're buying on the water?
If you're a boater, you have to make sure that, number one, your boat fits behind your house. So believe it or not, I've seen many many deals that have gone through where they've had to move their boats later on. And to me, that's a scary thought, to think that I would ever sell a property to a person that their boat didn't fit if they're a boater, because there are setbacks, there are rules with canals, and you have to understand those rules. You just can't bring in any size boat at any time on the canal. There's rules and laws that you have to follow. If they're not educated in that, then it's possible that they could bring a boat. For example, if they have a 55-foot boat and they have a 55-foot lot or waterfront, then they're in violation of the code. So, so they could, somebody could turn them in, and then they'd have to move or sell their boat.
Sure.
That's just one example. Another example is looking at seawall. The seawalls can be very expensive, and there's a lot of issues that surround seawalls with, sealing them, maintaining them. And not only that, but you have to, if you do certain amount of work on your property or on your dock, and you impact that seawall, then there's a good chance you're going to have to bring it up to the new standard, which can be very costly. And that would be, if you have a seawall currently there, you may have to have a cap put on it to meet the new standard, or in some cases, build a whole new seawall altogether.
Right. Well, and that's one of the benefits of having an experienced realtor like you, who knows what those issues are, and because you bring in experts to do those seawall inspections, right?
Exactly. I've never sold a home without an inspection.
Yeah, and because it's one of the most expensive repairs that is needed, and you don't want a surprise later on, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
A lot of people will say, hey, how old is the roof? I'm like, you better be asking about your seawall.
Yeah, it's
really
a whole lot
important.
more expensive, right? Yes. And you're paying by foot there. What's the most common misconception of people that are feeling that they want to live the dream on the waterfront?
Unfortunately, it's pricing. People will come to me and I'll say, okay, tell me what you want. You want a waterfront home? Yes. Do you want to put your boat behind your house? Yes. What do you want? I want a 4-bedroom house, and I want a pool and a 2-car garage. And okay, that's all good. So I'll say, what's your budget? Yeah, we maybe $800,000. Okay, well, you're not going to get a 4-bedroom house and all of those things, a pool and everything, and for that kind of money.
Right.
It's just not going to happen. So, we have to educate them on, the value and what, obviously, if you're further west, you get more further west for your money. But the closer you go east to the ocean or to the port, prices go up, obviously.
Sure. I know South Florida has the statistics that there are, I think, almost 1,000 people a day are moving to the state of Florida. And I think most of them are coming to South Florida because you should. And it's the best.
Right.
And, we have people listening in New York and Canada, overseas, that want maybe a vacation home where it may turn into what will be their primary residence. What's the first thing they should know before they book those airline tickets to fly down to South Florida, look at houses?
Well, I think the first thing they should know is what kind of lifestyle they want. You can be waterfront, could mean beachfront. So are they boaters? Are they beach people? Or do they want to be in a little more hurricane protected, a little further west? Do they want to be close to the beach and on a canal or waterfront and have their boat behind their house? So those are the main kind of things. And then also, what is their budget? Again, budget is very important because where you can find some things that are affordable farther west, you may have to put quite a bit of money into them to get them, remodeled or up to the standard that you want the property to be. So, really, we have to understand what their lifestyle is. I think. That's the most important.
Well, and you have to understand, too, what their tolerance is for
Hurricanes.
hurricanes, and all of those things that, they may want a 4-bedroom, but really 3 would do, and that may get them into their price range.
Exactly.
Or in really talking it through, and that's the expertise of a great realtor, right?
Right.
To be able to really figure out what those needs are, because people have preconceived notions. They come from the Midwest or they come from Canada, where they lived in a 5,000 square foot house, and they had all these bedrooms because that's what a 5,000 square foot house is. But now it's a retired couple, or it's a couple that the kids they're empty nesters. Do they really need a 5,000 square foot house with 5 bedrooms now? And is it more realistic to have that 3-bedroom house when the kids come, they can stay in that extra bedroom, but you don't need to maintain it all, right?
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
So to your point, you can modify some of that, or maybe you want to do a little work on your house.
Yeah.
Maybe you buy something that it could use a little fixing up. So a very good point, Marty, because everybody knows you could buy a home, for $30 million, or you could buy a home for $1 million, on the water. And that's a difference in price.
A nice range, yeah.
Nice range.
And you've lived on the water for 20 years, right?
Mm-hmm.
At least that. And have always had boats.
Mm-hmm.
And so, you have a good understanding of what homeownership on the water has been.
Mm-hmm.
What is it that you would say is the best lessons that you've learned as owning waterfront property that you want to share with your customers and clients?
I think that the best lesson is the location. My home that I live in is a great location for me and for my family. And so I think it's very important that you understand, is it a flood zone? That's another important thing. Not all waterfront is flood zone area. A lot of people immediately think because they live on the water that what if it floods? Well, I can tell you that there are many places in South Florida that flood more often than waterfront properties.
Yes. Yeah.
So it's low-lying areas, obviously. So, and low-lying areas aren't always waterfront, though they're becoming waterfront.
Yeah. No, yes, absolutely. As the water rises. One of the fears that we hear from people visiting Florida is they'll be coming from California and say, well, we have earthquakes, but they're not really in our area, and it's not nearly as dangerous as hurricanes, because hurricanes wipe out things and it's terrible. What would you tell people about really the risk of hurricanes and how South Florida building codes have changed that risk?
Anything that was built after Andrew is the codes have changed and the homes have been reinforced for hurricanes. So they don't let things go by, like you can't build a wood frame home anymore in South Florida. You can maybe build the second story wood frame, but the first floor has to be concrete. And they're very careful about, pilings and things like that, where maybe back years and years ago, they didn't have pilings. They didn't use them. Then there wasn't, the requirements weren't there. The other important thing about hurricanes is make sure that you adhere to the warnings and that you're prepared. Because usually the issues that evolve from my experience with hurricanes is, electrics out, water, you don't have water so for a period of time, or cables out if you have kids. So
a real crisis, yes.
Internet's out.
Yes, no.
So just be prepared, and listen to the officials and do what they say. And you're going to be okay in most cases.
Yeah. Yeah, I know my thought is if it's going to be a category 4 or above, it's time to leave. But if it's less than that, we're all going to be fine, right?
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
And the worst part about it is after the hurricane goes through, and if we don't have electricity, because it's usually really hot and we don't have air conditioning.
That's the other thing, yeah.
It's the worst part about it, right? So we all can go out and make food on a charcoal grill or a gas grill, but living and sleeping in 95-degree heat at night's tough.
Yes, and we've all done that.
And we've all done it, absolutely.
I've even done it for 2 weeks.
There you go. No, listen, we just came back from London and it was 100 degrees and the hotel room didn't have air conditioning. And so we took a shower and are laying on the bed hoping that the evaporation of the water will cool us down. So it can happen anywhere. But yeah, it's all about maintenance and care. And as you've mentioned about watching the warnings. So for those folks, again, from out of state that are thinking about a vacation home, one of the concerns that they have are, what do we do? How do we maintain the home? What do we do with the home in the times that we're not there? What do you tell them?
Well, there are services out there that people will come up and, most homes now, not all, but most of them are hurricane protected from impact windows and doors, and the roof is double strapped or what. I'm not sure that's what the term is, but anyway, the roof has been prepared properly, so it's not going to blow off. And so it's important that if you do live, say in Canada, that you have somebody here that can check on your home. Rather you pay them, or maybe it be a neighbor, and I think a lot of times neighbors will do that. If you have a boat, then it's important that somebody's going to take care of that boat if it's behind your home or in the water. And in my experience has been living on the water. If there is a hurricane, everybody helps each other. We all tie our boats up together. It's funny, they crisscross the lines down the canal. If there's an elderly person there that, maybe has a boat behind their house and they can't really help out much, everybody jumps in and takes care of that for them. I have impact windows, but I'm always putting up shutters during hurricanes because we do it for our neighbors who don't. So everybody kind of helps out each other for if something like that happens. So if you're out of town, just make sure that you have somebody that you can go to check on your property.
And Fort Lauderdale is still a small community when it comes to people helping out each other, right?
It is.
Yeah.
It is.
Yeah. What's the difference? We have an intercoastal waterway, we have oceanfront, and we have these side canals. And also in Fort Lauderdale, we have the New River, which is a navigable river that runs through the city. What's the difference in price point and desirability and kind of return on your investment in those different areas?
I would say the intracoastal waterway is probably the most expensive area. You may have some beachfront, as you get farther north and farther south that are going to be very expensive. But for Fort Lauderdale, in our area, it's going to be the Intracoastal Waterway because you have the best of both worlds. If you're on the Intracoastal, the beach is right behind you. So you have beach life and you have boating life, and it's quick to the ocean. So, again, it kind of goes back to lifestyle. And if you like to fish, for example, you want to be close to the oceans. You want to get out there, get your catch, and get back home. So basically, the Intracoastal is probably the most expensive in the Fort Lauderdale area. As you get back into like the riverfront property would probably be the second most expensive, because you can see the mega ships going back and forth. And the riverfront, the new river, for example, has many little waterways that go off of the side of it. So the new river goes north and south. And for example, the North Fork of the river is a lot quieter than the South Fork. The South Fork, you have the mega 150-foot ships that are going down, going back to the marina, back to Safe Haven. And that's where they work on the ships, and that's where the ships are stored. So back by the yacht area, back in there. The riverfront would be the second. And then you have little canals, little waterways. I call them navigable canals, so that you can take a boat back and forth and around, and that's where there's many little waterfront homes, and that's where you're going to be able to buy something for $1 million as a starting point. It's not going to be on the river. It's not going to be on the Intracoastal. It's going to be back in the navigable canal area.
But you can still have a boat of some size.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah, and enjoy that lifestyle.
Yes, and I just want to say that I always highly recommend, for resale value and for investment purposes, that you stick with canal area or navigable areas that have no fixed bridges. Because then, even if your boat doesn't have a tuna tower or is not a sailboat, somebody else coming down the road later on might want your property for that reason. So it's very important to stick with the no fixed bridge area, navigable.
Very good. Good advice, because there's nothing worse than, you found your dream home, but unfortunately your dream boat doesn't fit. And you can't move under one of those bridges that doesn't open up. Right. So yeah, we're in the Arlo Wynwood Hotel that is brand new. And it has been built to have some historic-looking features, some retro-looking features, because it's the style and it's what's popular, especially among a younger crowd and really kind of the art crowd that is, so prevalent here in Miami with our mural arts area and here in the Arts District. So that's available everywhere in South Florida, and to be able to find those places is great, isn't it?
Right.
Yeah, no.
Yes.
And experience talking here, Kelly can find those places for you. So it's great. What's the state of the market right now? What's happening in South Florida and let's talk the difference between homes and condos.
Single-family homes right now, and condos in general, inventory is up in both areas. Up over last year, percentage-wise, if you add the two together, it's like maybe 25% over last year. Actual sales are down about 10%, but the interesting part is pricing is up 3%. That tells me that we're in a market that's shifting and changing and doesn't really know which direction it's going. There's so many things that impact the market. Obviously, interest rates have an impact, but that may impact a certain area of the market. And we see, we just had the 0.25% drop in interest rates. So that got a few people kick-started, but not enough to get us moving, get the ball really rolling. So it's going to determine on, our political environment impacts it. It doesn't matter what side of the coin you're on. It's just impacting because there's a lot of uncertainty out there right now. Things are changing. And the first thing I notice is whenever there's change, people don't buy houses when there's change until they understand what the change is. So for example, during election time, everybody stopped buying houses. And then once the elections were over, everybody starts buying houses again. And that was true when it was, the Democrats won or the Republicans won. It's always the same. They just want certainty before they make that big move. And so I think right now, that might be the issue, is that we're going through a changing market. I'm not really sure, and I don't think anybody is really sure what direction we're headed for the market.
Is it a buyer's market at this point?
It is.
And are you seeing, you said that prices are up. So are you seeing where buyers can come in and they're getting good prices? Or are the prices just staying high and those deals are really hard to find?
I'm starting to see where buyers are getting good prices, starting to. So properties, that another thing, days on the market are up. That's another thing that's up. So where, we would have a day supply of maybe back during COVID, we were had hardly any supply of inventory. Obviously, as inventory goes up, it becomes more of a buyer's market because they have more choices. Prices haven't gone down, but we're seeing them starting to go down. And so this is why it's very important that you have a realtor that understands the area and understands what's going on in that area. Because it could mean $100,000, sometimes even more, price difference. Because a home could sit on the market at the same price for a long time, for maybe even a year, and the actual owner of that property, the seller, could, is just waiting for the right offer to come along and will negotiate. But you have to understand what's been sitting and what hasn't, and the mindset of, or the area, and what's going on in that area, because real estate is very spotty. You might have something that, like out west, things might be selling during the, right before the school year, where they're not selling downtown. So again, it's spotty, and it's very important that you have a realtor that really understands that particular area that you're purchasing in, and especially, again, waterfront.
Yeah. Well, and we have so many realtors in South Florida, not just Fort Lauderdale, that are at best part-time. And in other words, they may have been doing something else, but they've decided they'll get their real estate license and someday they'll sell a property.
Right.
So you really need a person who's doing it full-time, right?
Yes, because, one of the things I've never really been able to get my arms around or understand at all is people will entrust their biggest investment of their lifetime to their cousin's brother's son that just got their real estate license, and they're going to sell their home, and they're going to use him because they just think that it's going to be easy and it's not important, when it's extremely important. And same for buying.
Yeah.
It's very important, because if you value your money, you should value your real estate agent.
Right, and that realtor has those relationships with other realtors, finds the deals, finds the best properties, right?
Exactly. My customers are very, very important to me, but also the real estate agents that I work with. And it's kind of like the 20-80 rule. 20% of the realtors actually do sell property, 80% don't.
Right.
Or maybe one every 2 years or something. Those are the ones you want to kind of stay away from.
Yeah, no, truly. What do you say to people that are trying to decide whether to buy that house that's completely remodeled or a fixer-up?
First thing I would say is check your elevation. Elevations have changed over time, obviously, because of the, flood zones and so forth. So, we're back in the 50s, the elevation of homes would be like 5.5%. I'm talking about around waterfront again. Now it's like 8 feet. I said 5.5%, I meant 5.5 feet. Now it's around 8 feet elevation. And,
above sea level, yeah. Okay.
And it depends on where you are, too, on the water. So it's very important to, before you remodel your home, to understand the elevation of the home and understand if it's going to be worth it down the road to remodel it. And understand, if you're going to be able to get the permits to remodel it, because there are rules in place that if you remodel a portion of your home and you don't have the value, for example, if you do more than 50% of the value of the structure of your home, the new, what you're changing to the property, they may make you bring the floor up to the new elevation rule. And when you bring a floor up, now you're taking the ceiling down, because most of those older homes were built back in the 50s and they got 9-foot ceilings. You can't have 9-foot ceilings, and now that your
that's right.
floor's way up.
So unless you're a little person, you probably need to do something different. Yes.
Yeah. So then you have to take the roof off, and now why not just tear down the whole thing?
Yeah.
So that's
So there's
what we're
lots
seeing.
of challenges there.
Yeah.
I know you and I have worked together on real estate, and it's important on how you frame a contract and how you make offers. Tell us a little bit about your expertise in that and how that has aided you in getting deals done.
Well, I have to say that I had a really good teacher. It was you.
Selfish plug. Yes, I know.
No, some of your tips and ideas have really helped me, especially during COVID. So, for example, if somebody's making an offer, it's not always the highest price. It's not, in a bidding war or in a home that is popular on the market, the price may not be the main issue to the seller. If you have a popular home out there and there's many offers, go in with a fair price and a large escrow check at the very beginning and send all of that information with your contract when you're making an offer. And that really gets the attention of the seller because they know you're serious. There's so many offers that are made out there right now by people, like a lot of investors will just throw offers out, throw them out and say, I'll put $5,000 in escrow, and here, they've never even seen the home.
Right.
They just put the offer out there and to see if they can maybe get somebody to bite on it. It's just a lot of noise in the contract and in the offer process. So if you show up with the check in hand and the right terms, you don't want to say, oh, I want my inspection day to be, 20 days. Who needs a 20-day inspection day? Most inspectors can come out the next day and they have the report for you the next day. So 7 days at the most on inspection, unless you find a problem, obviously.
No, that's great. Well, it just makes it more enticing to the seller, right?
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
And that's the name of the game. What typically do you say on a days to close when you put in an offer? What's your recommendation to your buyer on how many days should there be until you close on the deal? In other words, buy the property.
Well, I think days to close come down quite a bit, but I'd say the standard would be like 45 on a conventional deal. If you can close earlier, that's great too, and make sure that you convey that to the seller that if everything is done earlier, then we'll close earlier. If the seller is willing to do that.
Yeah.
And the other, on a cash offer, 30 days is sufficient.
Yeah.
And it doesn't, in some cases, I've done deals in 15 days, on a cash offer.
Yeah.
Because it's just doing the title work. And once the title work's done, that's it.
Right. And it's certainly more attractive. If somebody wants a cash deal and close and get their money, a shorter closing is certainly more attractive, right?
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
So now you work with investors, and those investors are either buying a home to turn around and maybe do something to it and sell it again, or they're looking to rent it long term, or they're looking for it to be an Airbnb or some type of short term or seasonal rental. What would you tell a potential buyer on what you think works best?
Okay, so for like a vacation rental, for example, there's a couple of things that you really should have. And you should have 3 bedrooms, a pool, something unique, something that's going to, maybe even look into possibly having kayaks, paddle boards, that kind of thing, so they can enjoy the lifestyle here. So that would be what I would tell somebody, an investor that is investing in an Airbnb. A lot of investors are purchasing property. And they'll buy these older homes that need to be torn down, and there's quite a few of them on the water because when they started building, they built on the water. And so there's a lot of homes from the 50s on the water that are not salvageable. So the investors love the larger lots. So an investor that is going to eventually build a home is going to want a larger lot. So, and I try to price those properties at a premium for my sellers because they'll pay them. It's interesting that in many areas, if you have a house for $1 million, that's, let's say it's been fixed up kind of cute, it's still livable, and you have a lot for $1.30 million with a house that's torn, going to be, needs to be torn down, a lot of times the investors will buy it for $1,030,000 and not mess with the one that is livable.
Right.
And I don't understand that, but it's true. They don't. They don't look at homes that have been remodeled or still livable. They want things that need to be torn down, which is an interesting.
Yeah. So, they have maybe a longer term look at their investment as opposed to something that they can turn around and rent right away, or Airbnb or whatever, or maybe it's a second home. But that's interesting from a buyer's perspective and from a seller's perspective, because if you're buying something that may not be your forever home, think about great lot, great location. Maybe the house is but you can live in it and all of that and can enjoy it for what you want immediately. But down the road, always look for the saleability of it for the future, right?
Right, exactly.
Yeah. So location's the most important, I think I heard you say. Then lot size is important. And then if the home, it's got to be 3-bedroom, is the better choice for a buyer for short or longer term, right? Okay, very good. So all of you folks looking to invest in South Florida, this is great tidbits. So, and come in with a cash offer if you can.
If you can, is going to, yes. Because you probably will get a better discount if you have cash.
You have cash to do it, right. And what about the differences now between condos and houses? Where do you see, is the market any different from one over the other? Is appreciation different in one over the other?
It depends. Again, it depends on where it is, the age of the condo. Because I think most people know that South Florida has experienced an issue with some of the older condos and the concrete restoration requirements in some of these condos, which I think has hurt the condo industry on the beach area.
Right.
Because most of them, not all of them, but most of these are feeling the pain on the beach. It's the assessments, and a lot of people can't afford these types of assessments. Some people that are on a fixed income may live in a condo, and have lived there for years, and all of a sudden, they have to do this concrete restoration, and they have a $50,000 assessment, and they just don't have the money for that.
Right.
So that's been an issue with, and then the HOAs are very high here too, because one of the reasons the HOAs are high is because insurance is high, and then you have this all the issues that come along with a beachfront condo. They need to be maintained, and it's very important that they're maintained properly, and they've really cracked down on that. Now, a newer condo also probably is a good investment. But again, it depends on where it is.
Yeah.
And the new condos have all of these very exotic amenities that, people dog sitting and baby sitting and all of this stuff, that they never had. Of course, you pay for that too. So,
right.
Your HOA is going to be up there on a new one as well.
That's right. So. And some of these new condos even have your car is on an elevator and brings it up to the level of your house. So think how much more maintenance there is in that than leaving it down on the ground.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's you have to pay for all those amenities, and you're going to share it with all your neighbors. So,
yes.
Yeah, it's something to consider, that's for certain. So let's go back a little bit and entice these people that are listening about, you want to come to South Florida, you're interested in the boating culture, you want to have a boat. How easy is it to get to the Bahamas or Bimini off the Florida coast?
It's very easy to get to Bimini, provided the weather is cooperating with you.
Sure, yeah.
There have been many times, Bimini's close. It's a 3-hour ride on an average boat, Some of the boats can make it in maybe an hour and a half because they have, 5 engines on the back of them.
Right, yeah.
So, like yours, Marty.
Yeah, it won't go that fast. Yes, I'll have now.
But no, so on the average, it's about a 3-hour ride to Bimini. The problem is you never know what's going to happen with the weather. So it's very important that you keep an eye on the weather on your way over there. And I speak from experience. My husband and I, with the kids, we've been struck by lightning on the ocean. The worst thing that happened to us was we lost our generator, which means we lost our air conditioning, and we had 2 screaming kids.
Yes, with
little kids with no AC. And we were planning on staying in the boat on this vacation, but we ended up having to, stay in a couple of hotels
Yeah.
once we
Which
got over
adds
there.
to the price, yes.
So, but Bimini is easy to get to. And if you're going to Nassau, which that's as far as we've gone, it's just a wonderful, wonderful ride. We stayed at Cat Cay on the way over. We've been, it's just, if the weather's calm, which it is pretty much in the summertime, there's no hurricanes out there.
Yeah.
That's when it's time to go to Bimini. In the winter, it can be a little, it's rough.
A little rougher then, right? Yes.
And it's uncomfortable.
It's 3 hours away, or probably 7 hours to the next island, but you can be in tropical paradise and out of the U.S., quite frankly, in that short a time from your home in Fort Lauderdale, right?
Yes. And the people of the islands, they have their own culture. And it's very interesting. So like Hopetown was probably my favorite place. I haven't been there since the hurricane that they had, but I've heard that they've rebuilt it, Marsh Harbor and all of that. But it's just, the water is amazing, and it's just something you can't even believe. It's so beautiful out there.
Yeah, and so close.
And so close.
So it's a great thing. And so it's the reason to live in what I think is paradise. We're so lucky to live in a place where most people want to come to vacation.
Yes,
so,
we're on vacation every day, Mark.
There you go. And so because it's so popular and because we have so many realtors, I think the real estate industry here is pretty competitive and maybe a little cutthroat at times, right?
Oh, yeah.
How do you stand out and stay true to your values of integrity and honesty?
I just try to stay honest all the time. And I believe, and sometimes I may lose a sale by being honest, but it's important to me to keep my reputation. One thing, I never use a lockbox, because the scenario of a lockbox to me is, some realtors will just get the listing, put the lockbox on, poof, they're gone, and they'll let the other realtors show it. And I always show my own properties, because I feel like you have to sell the property. Otherwise, what's your value? You have to sell the property. You have to sell the lifestyle. And I've lived the lifestyle, so it's easy for me to sell the waterfront lifestyle because of that. And I do have a pretty thorough knowledge of waterways around Broward County and into Hollywood and to Boca. It's always important to me. Your integrity is the most important thing. Before the money, before the deal, before anything. And that's not only your integrity to your customer, but also to your fellow real estate agent.
Yeah, because you're going to see them again and again, aren't you? Yes.
Small world out there.
There you go. The beauty of Fort Lauderdale, too, is that there's so much more waterfront properties than Miami. Because Miami, we have Biscayne Bay, and there's homes along there that are nowhere near $1 million and are much closer to the 30 million. They're out there and beautiful, but all you're doing is looking at big, wide open water, but it's black at night.
Yeah.
And there's so many more canals, so much more, quite frankly, dining on the water in Fort Lauderdale, places to go. And you can travel to Bimini. It's much closer than it is to Miami. And quite frankly, you can bring that boat down to Miami and see some of the
beautiful things,
big buildings that are down here and all. But you go back to Fort Lauderdale and you have so many more choices on the water, don't you?
Yes, you do.
I know it's, I'm a Fort Lauderdale fan. I grew up there, but lived in Miami for almost all my work life, but moved back to Fort Lauderdale simply for the fact of being able to afford the water, but being on the water and being able to use the water, which is so great. And you sold me my first house on the water. And so that's how I met Kelly. And that was the first forever home that I bought. And now I'm on the fourth forever home that I bought and is for sale. So, you always like change, or I always like change, and it's fun fixing them up. And maybe I have a little bit of that gay gene in me that, you need to do something with something. So, but it's always fun and always great to be on the water. Let me ask you another question. What's the biggest mistake that another realtor might make selling a waterfront home that people need to look out for?
That first thing that pops in my mind is their boat going to be able to fit behind their house?
Yeah.
Are they going to be, is it no fixed bridge? What if there's a tuna tower? It can be a small boat with a tuna tower that needs to get through the bridges,
Yeah.
So And like I said, Marty, I've seen it quite a few times. People make mistakes. They have to sell their home because either they love their boat or they have to sell their boat because they love their home, because they
Either
can't
way,
have
it's
the
not
two.
good. Yeah, no.
Yeah.
Or, being in a wake zone, especially on the
That's another
intercoastal,
thing.
which is nuts because,
Yes.
these guys come by in their boats that, have more power than they should and, are showing off to their girlfriend or boyfriend and how fast it can go and make these big waves that really tear up the boats along the end. So, so being in a no-wake zone is important.
And also another thing is there was a home that I was selling the home next to it, but this home was for sale and marketed as a waterfront property, ocean access, no fixed bridge. When the people purchased the home, it was not a waterfront. They had no waterfront because the house next to it owned the riparian rights to that it was at the end of the canal, and there was no place to put a boat.
Yeah.
So because they owned all of that water.
So you got to watch out for those things too, because
Yes.
they're hidden deeds on those things. So,
Yep.
yeah. And, well, you and I had an issue with a property like that too. And thankfully, there was the ability to dock a boat there. But we certainly had problems with that guy that owned the seabed, which, was worth absolutely nothing, but he felt it was worth a whole lot more.
Yeah.
So, but he still owns it. So it's nice. I'm sure he's going to enjoy it. He can watch the crabs walking around on the floor there, ground. So you've been involved for 2 decades selling property. What's the future? The kids are almost out of the house now, and presumably they won't be probably back in the house because they're going to be incredibly successful, although mom probably would like them to be back in the house.
For a while.
For a while at least, right? So what's it look like for Kelly and Rob in the next 10 years, 15 years? What's going to happen?
Well, I think I will be selling real estate still.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know, we hope to travel a little, maybe, and maybe do some more trips to the Bahamas because I love that area. And I mean, traveling, I want to travel Europe and that kind of thing. And I've seen enough of the Far East. And, so I probably won't go over there anymore because I've been there probably 20 times. And Mexico, I've been there so many times, but what a beautiful country that is. So I think probably we're just going to, relax a little bit because we've been living a very fast-paced life for a very long time. And my husband works and has a big job as VP of finance. It's stressful.
Yeah.
So I hope to just have things settle down a little bit and, just enjoy each other and do some things that we like to do, boating and traveling and that kind of thing.
Very good. Let's go back to when you were younger and say 30 years ago, you're in high school and you are going to give yourself some advice. What would you say if you look back and could give your younger self some great advice? What would you tell young Kelly?
I would tell young Kelly, that's easy, guys. First thing I would do is not spend as much time as I spent in the corporate world. Even though I learned a lot and I did enjoy it, I like working for myself much better. And I've actually done much better working for myself. So, you don't always have to work for somebody. It's difficult. Corporate can be extremely stressful and challenging and painful at times. It's just working for yourself is so much better. So I wouldn't give up any of my experiences in the corporate world because I did learn a lot in negotiating and negotiated with China, with Mexico, and even with I was there back in the day when we had U.S. manufacturing, so I was constantly working with the manufacturing facilities. I'm talking real manufacturing, like producing toasters, coffee makers, blenders, things that you don't see made in the U.S. anymore.
Yeah.
And won't ever see again. Yeah. I would probably have given that up a little sooner after I got all my travel experience and my knowledge and go out on my own and do real estate.
I think that's something that we hear across the board with most people. You certainly hear it with lawyers and with CPAs, and I think with doctors to a certain extent, that when they did go out on their own, if they did, life was so much more enjoyable for them. I know it was for me, and so it's a good tip for everyone that sometimes you need to take that leap of faith and say, I think I can make it, and we're going to just try it.
Right.
And so, no, that's good. I always like to end an interview, Kelly, with some quick hits. No overthinking, just tell me the first thing that comes to your mind. Dream trip, the Keys or the Bahamas?
Bahamas.
Okay. Best waterfront restaurant to pull your boat up to?
Rendezvous.
I like that too. Morning routine, coffee, listings, or look at the water?
Oh, well, look at the water's my first choice while having coffee.
There you go. And not looking at listings, looking at contracts that are coming in, right? Yes.
Right.
If you swapped a home with any client, which one would you pick?
Any client? I think I would pick one on the river. I don't really want it. I think the riverfront would be my choice. And there's one in my neighborhood that I would pick that I don't need, 6 bedrooms and all. I just need the beautiful river view so I could see the boats. And I'm a little further down the canal, so I can't see them as well. But I would pick a riverfront house.
Yeah, that river in Fort Lauderdale is really special because beyond where you live is the largest marina and repair place for yachts in the Southeast U.S.
Yes.
And so every major yacht that requires any service, which means every major yacht, has to go by the river.
Yes.
And so you get to see these boats that go by that really block the sun
Oh,
they're
yes.
going by your house, right?
It's like a house moving in front of you.
Yeah.
And many very famous people boats are back there.
Yeah, no, absolutely. One word that defines waterfront lifestyle.
Exciting.
Very good.
Yep.
Kelly Huguet, realtor, boater, someone who shows us that living on the water is exciting, is fascinating, is a challenge, and can negotiate that real estate purchase, the real estate sale, with her experience from the corporate world, and that it's all about integrity, lifestyle, and chasing that dream and enjoying that dream once you're there. And what I love most about Kelly's story is that she takes something that looks like a fantasy and makes it a reality. So you need to contact Kelly Huguet when you're thinking about buying real estate in South Florida to make your dreams come true. Thanks so much for being here, Kelly.
Thank you, Marty. I appreciate it very much.
Until next time, I'm Marty Davis, reminding you to live with integrity, anchor your values, and maybe trade your driveway for a dock.